The subterranean research complex trembled, its quantum resonance chambers crackling with barely contained energy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her palm against a crystalline interface, her fingers tracing intricate patterns that seemed to breathe with an alien intelligence. Around her, the remnants of her original research team lay in stasis pods, not dead, as the official reports claimed, but suspended in a state between existence and quantum uncertainty. 3 months earlier, Elena's breakthrough had been met with ridicule and professional execution. The Xenodynamics Research Committee had stripped her of her credentials, calling her quantum entanglement theories mathematical fantasy and a danger to scientific integrity. They couldn't comprehend that she had discovered something far more terrifying than a mere scientific anomaly. The attack that destroyed her original facility was no accident. As she reviewed the fragmented data logs, Elena understood the truth. The Void Collective had deliberately targeted her team to suppress their research. Her colleagues hadn't died. They had been quantum shifted, their consciousness trapped in a liminal space that defied conventional understanding of life and death. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing intercepted communications from deep space. Fractal patterns of alien geometries danced across the screen, revealing the Void Collective's invasion strategy. They weren't just conquering civilizations, they were systematically erasing entire species from the quantum fabric of reality. Humanity was next, and conventional military strategies would be about as effective as throwing stones at a hurricane. Elena's quantum displacement device, her most radical invention, sat in pieces across the laboratory. It wasn't a weapon, not in the traditional sense. It was a proof of concept, a demonstration that reality itself could be manipulated by those who understood its fundamental weaknesses. Each component represented years of research, stolen moments of inspiration, and the collective genius of minds too radical for traditional scientific establishments. The military tribunal had been a show trial, designed to discredit her and bury her research. They feared what they couldn't control, what they couldn't understand. Elena knew the real battle would be fought not on physical battlefields, but in the quantum realm where perception and reality blurred into a single malleable concept. Her wrist communicator chirped, an encrypted message from an unlikely ally. Dr. Marcus Wright, a disgraced military strategist who had been court-martialed for refusing orders that would have resulted in massive civilian casualties. He understood, perhaps better than anyone, that survival sometimes meant challenging every established rule. "They're coming," the message read. 18 standard months. Quantum signatures detected beyond the Kuiper belt. Elena's fingers danced across the quantum interface. The stasis pods began to pulse with a soft, rhythmic light. Her team wasn't dead. They were waiting. Quantum locked, their consciousness preserved in a state of potential energy, ready to be unleashed when the moment was right. The facility's security systems triggered. Elena knew she had minutes before a tactical response team would breach her location. But she wasn't planning to run. She was planning to disappear and reappear exactly where and when humanity would need her most. A final sequence of quantum calculations scrolled across her display. Each line of code was a weapon more potent than any missile, more precise than any conventional strategy. She was creating not just a theoretical framework, but a fundamental challenge to the Void Collective's understanding of existence. As alarms blared and armored personnel carriers approached the facility's perimeter, Elena Rodriguez completed her final calculation. The quantum displacement device hummed to life, its energy signature unlike anything recorded in human scientific history. The laboratory's walls seemed to ripple, reality itself becoming momentarily translucent. And then, in a burst of quantum probability, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was everywhere and nowhere. A ghost in the machine, a harbinger of humanity's most impossible defense. Her last action before quantum translation was to broadcast a single message across multiple encrypted channels. Some deaths are just the beginning. The underground bunker was a labyrinth of quantum containment chambers, each wall lined with adaptive metamaterials that could shift molecular density at a moment's notice. Dr. Akira Tanaka worked feverishly, his hands moving with the precision of a concert pianist and the desperation of a man with nothing left to lose. A holographic display tracked multiple quantum signatures, each representing a potential recruit for Elena's impossible mission. Tanaka understood better than most the personal cost of scientific breakthrough. His groundbreaking research on quantum entanglement had been stolen by a consortium of corporate interests, his life's work reduced to a footnote in classified military documents. Now he saw a chance for redemption that transcended academic recognition. Commander Marcus Wright arrived through a concealed entrance, his gait revealing the weight of years of military service and personal trauma. A neural interface glinted at the base of his skull, a remnant of experimental military augmentation that had left him seeing fragments of potential futures. Most would have called it a curse. Marcus saw it as his most valuable asset. "We're missing a critical component," Marcus announced, projecting a three-dimensional schematic that seemed to breathe and shift. "The computational matrix requires a human element that can't be artificially replicated." Enter Dr. Zara Okoi, who materialized almost silently, her augmented eyes scanning the room with computational precision. Where others saw a laboratory, she perceived a complex system of potential interactions, each variable a potential point of failure or breakthrough. "Not just a human element," Zara corrected, her voice carrying the weight of profound loss, "but a specific type of human resilience. The kind born from absolute destruction." Her family had been among the first casualties of the early alien incursions, a fact that transformed her from a brilliant computational theorist into a weapon of pure intellectual vengeance. The Void Collective hadn't just killed her loved ones, they created the very instrument of their potential destruction. Tanaka's display flickered, revealing fragments of intercepted Void Collective communications. They weren't just an invading force. They were a quantum-level consciousness that consumed and assimilated entire civilizations, erasing not just biological entities, but the very potential of their existence. "We're dealing with more than an invasion," Tanaka explained, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. "The Void Collective doesn't just destroy, they eliminate potential. Every civilization they encounter is not just killed, but retroactively erased from quantum probability." Marcus stepped forward, neural implants creating a visualization only he could fully comprehend. Fractals of potential timelines spread around him like a complex, multidimensional spider web. "I've seen fragments," he muttered, "moments where humanity simply doesn't exist, as if we were never even a possibility." Zara's computational systems began integrating the data, creating models that defied traditional understanding of warfare, biology, or even existence itself. "Traditional defense is impossible," she concluded. "We need to create a system that doesn't just fight, but fundamentally challenges the very concept of invasion." The bunker's quantum containment fields began to resonate, responding to the intensity of their collective intent. Equipment calibrated itself, adaptive materials shifting to accommodate computational models that pushed against the boundaries of known physics. A secure communication channel activated. Elena Rodriguez, still quantum displaced, sending fragmented instructions that seemed to arrive before they were even sent. Each message was a quantum puzzle, requiring simultaneous interpretation and creation. "We're not just building a weapon," Marcus realized, watching the room's very reality seem to pulse and shift. "We're creating a fundamental challenge to the Void Collective's understanding of existence." Tanaka's research notes, the ones that had been stolen, the ones that had cost him everything, began to reassemble themselves. Quantum entanglement wasn't just a scientific principle, it was a weapon of unprecedented potential. Each piece of data became a living thing, spreading through their systems like an intellectual virus of human innovation. Zara's augmented systems began to synchronize with the bunker's quantum fields. For a moment, the line between human consciousness and computational system blurred completely. They weren't just preparing a defense, they were rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. "We'll need test subjects," Zara announced, her voice carrying a clinical detachment that barely concealed her burning determination. Volunteers who understand that survival means becoming something more than human. Marcus smiled, an expression that was equal parts hope and strategic calculation. I know exactly where to find them. The prototype chamber resembled a cross between a surgical theater and a quantum accelerator. Fractal-shaped containment fields shimmered with an almost organic pulse, responding to micro-variations in atmospheric pressure, emotional intensity, and quantum probability. Dr. Akira Tanaka stood at the primary control interface, his augmented eyes tracking millions of simultaneous data streams. Each calculation was a delicate dance of potential destruction and breakthrough. The prototype, a device no larger than a human heart, sat suspended in a magnetic field that seemed to breathe with its own consciousness. Initiating quantum resonance sequence, Zara announced, her voice clinical yet charged with an underlying current of anticipation. Holographic displays erupted around her, each showing potential outcome trajectories that shifted and morphed with terrifying complexity. Commander Marcus Wright watched from a reinforced observation chamber. His neural implants fired in synchronization with the experiment, allowing him glimpses of potential futures that flickered at the edge of human perception. Most would have been driven mad by such constant temporal bombardment. Marcus had learned to surf the waves of probability. The first test stage began innocuously enough. Quantum entanglement markers started to align, creating a network of potential interactions that defied traditional understanding of space and time. But something was different this time. The prototype began to resonate at frequencies never before recorded in human scientific history. Quantum coherence is approaching critical threshold, Tanaka muttered, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to anticipate his movements. Probability matrices are becoming unstable. A low humming filled the chamber. Not a sound, precisely, but a vibration that seemed to penetrate the very fabric of reality. The prototype began to flicker, not just visually, but across multiple dimensional planes. For fractional moments, it existed simultaneously in different states, intact, disassembled, transformed, destroyed. Marcus saw the potential futures first. Timelines where the experiment succeeded. Timelines where it failed catastrophically. Timelines where the very act of observation created multiple branching realities. Containment fields are destabilizing, Zara warned, her computational systems working overtime to predict and counteract the growing quantum instability. The prototype's energy signature began to leak, creating localized time rifts that threatened to tear the research facility apart. Conventional shielding would be useless. This was quantum-level destruction that didn't follow any known physical laws. Marcus made a split-second decision that would forever alter the course of the experiment and his own existence. As a massive energy surge threatened to breach the containment fields, he stepped into the primary chamber. His augmented body, a fusion of military-grade cybernetics and experimental quantum interfaces, became a living buffer. The moment stretched into an eternity. Tanaka watched in horror as Marcus seemed to fragment, his body becoming a conduit for quantum energies that no human was meant to channel. His neural implants overloaded, creating a feedback loop that connected him to multiple potential timelines simultaneously. He's becoming a quantum anchor, Zara realized, her systems interpreting the impossible data streaming from the chamber. Not just observing multiple timelines, becoming them. Marcus's consciousness exploded outward. He experienced countless potential moments. Battles won and lost, civilizations rising and falling. Humanity's potential futures compressed into a single, overwhelming instant. The Void Collective's invasion. Humanity's resistance. Potential extinction. Potential transcendence. When the energy surge subsided, Marcus remained, but fundamentally changed. His eyes now held a depth that spoke of witnessing realities beyond human comprehension. Fragments of potential futures continued to flash through his mind, showing both humanity's potential destruction and its most impossible salvation. Tanaka approached cautiously. Status report. Marcus turned, and for a moment, multiple versions of himself seemed to overlap. "We're ready," he said, his voice carrying the weight of witnessed possibilities. but the cost will be more than anyone is prepared to pay. The prototype sat silent in its containment field. But something had changed. It was no longer just a device. It was a beacon of potential, a quantum bridge between what was, what could be, and what must never happen. Zara's computational systems ran final diagnostics. One line of code stood out among millions. Probability of success, 0.000001%. Probability of transcendence, unknown. The Paradox warship took shape in a massive underground construction facility that defied conventional engineering principles. Its framework was more than mere metal and composite materials. It was a living system of quantum adaptive architecture that seemed to breathe and pulse with an almost sentient awareness. Zara Okoi stood at the central design matrix, her augmented systems interfacing directly with the ship's computational core. Each component was a masterpiece of impossible engineering. Hull panels that could phase between solid matter and quantum probability, weapon systems that existed in multiple potential states simultaneously, propulsion mechanisms that warped rather than traversed space. Traditional spacecraft are linear systems, she explained to a group of bewildered engineering specialists brought in for specialized tasks. This is a quantum ecosystem. It doesn't just move through space. It negotiates with space itself. The ship's construction drew from impossible sources. Fragments of experimental materials recovered from failed research projects. Quantum entangled components salvaged from military black sites. Technologies deemed too dangerous, too radical, too incomprehensible by conventional scientific standards. Marcus Wright moved through the construction site, his altered perception allowing him to see potential structural configurations that no standard engineering model could conceive. To him, the ship was a living timeline. Each rivet, each quantum stabilization field a potential point of divergence between survival and extinction. Dr. Akira Tanaka managed the most complex integration challenge. The ship's computational matrix wasn't just a system. It was a living extension of human potential. He discovered that the most advanced components responded not just to mathematical calculations, but to emotional resonance, determination, hope, fury. The ship learns, Tanaka realized during a critical system test. It doesn't just process, it understands. Experimental quantum coupling techniques allowed the ship's systems to draw energy from potential states. It could harvest power from moments that hadn't yet occurred, from timelines that existed only in probability. Traditional energy constraints became meaningless. The first true test came unexpectedly. A routine systems check triggered an unprecedented response. The ship's quantum matrices began to resonate with the team's collective emotional state. Zara's computational precision, Marcus's temporal awareness, Tanaka's scientific passion. The vessel began to absorb their collective experience, their collective trauma, their collective hope. Classified military archives began to flow into the ship's memory banks. Encounters with alien technologies, fragments of failed defense strategies, moments of human resilience that had been buried and forgotten. The Paradox warship wasn't just absorbing data, it was learning the true nature of human survival. "We're not building a weapon," Marcus observed during a critical design review. "We're creating a living testament to human potential." The ship's exterior began to shift, adaptive camouflage that went beyond visual spectrum manipulation, quantum-level concealment that could make the vessel simultaneously present and absent. Weapon systems that could strike before the decision to attack was even made. Zara's most radical innovation came from an unexpected direction. She discovered that the ship's computational matrix could be influenced by complex human emotions. Memories became computational pathways. Trauma transformed into strategic algorithms. The line between human consciousness and technological system blurred completely. Traditional AI is a simulation of intelligence, she explained to a skeptical review board. This is something else entirely. We're creating a symbiotic system that doesn't just mimic human thought, it amplifies it. Each system became a battleground of innovation. The life support systems learned from medical databases of human survival under extreme conditions. Weapon systems absorbed tactical knowledge from centuries of human conflict. Navigation matrices integrated geological, astronomical, and quantum probability data into a single fluid intelligence. As the Void Collective's invasion drew closer, the Paradox warship took on an almost mythical quality. It wasn't just a technological marvel. It was humanity's most impossible defense, a vessel that could exist in multiple states, that could learn and adapt faster than any known technological system. During a final systems integration test, something unprecedented happened. The ship's quantum matrices began to pulse with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat, not mechanical, not artificial, something else entirely. Marcus watched the readings, his augmented perception capturing milliseconds of potential futures. "We're not just building a ship," he whispered. "We're giving birth to humanity's next evolutionary step." The first visual contact with the Void Collective's invasion fleet defied every conventional understanding of spatial geometry. Their ships weren't vessels in any traditional sense. They were living mathematical constructs, fractal entities that shifted and breathed with an alien intelligence that made human engineering look like primitive sculpture. Deep space monitoring stations went dark one by one. Not destroyed, precisely, but simply erased from existence. Entire communication networks collapsed into quantum singularities that left no trace of their previous functionality. Rear Admiral Helena Reyes studied the incoming data streams from the Primary Defense Command Center. Her fingers traced holographic projections that showed humanity's defensive lines crumbling faster than any previous simulation could have predicted. The Void Collective didn't just attack, they dismantled reality itself. "Prepare the Paradox warship," she commanded, her voice steady despite the apocalyptic scene unfolding before her. Inside the vessel, Dr. Zara Okoye interfaced directly with the ship's quantum matrices. Her consciousness expanded beyond biological limitations, becoming a living computational system that interpreted incoming threat data in milliseconds of potential futures. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of human potential, a living contradiction of everything the Void Collective understood about existence. Commander Marcus Wright's neural implants transformed the incoming threat data into a three-dimensional probability landscape. He could see multiple engagement scenarios simultaneously, each a potential threat of survival, each a delicate negotiation with quantum possibility. "They're not just attacking," Marcus observed, his perception stretching across multiple potential timelines. "They're systematically eliminating potential futures." The Void Collective's assault was a nightmare of impossible geometry. Their ships moved through space not as physical objects, but as probability waves that could simultaneously exist in multiple locations. Entire human defense squadrons simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but retroactively removed from the fabric of spatial-temporal reality. Dr. Akira Tanaka monitored the initial engagement from the Paradox warship's quantum control center. His augmented systems processed information at speeds that would have driven a normal human mind into complete breakdown. Each incoming data stream was a complex mathematical poem of destruction and potential. The Paradox warship entered the battlefield like a ghost. No, something more than a ghost. A living contradiction. It struck before it appeared, existed in multiple combat positions simultaneously, defied every known law of physical engagement. Zara's computational systems discovered something unprecedented. The Void Collective's attack patterns were more than military strategy. They were a form of mathematical conquest. Each engagement was a complex equation designed to eliminate not just physical resistance, but the very possibility of resistance. "They're trying to solve humanity," Zara realized, her voice a blend of computational precision and human insight. "Not conquer. Solve, like a mathematical problem to be eliminated." The ship's weapon systems operated on principles that defied traditional understanding. Quantum entanglement allowed projectiles to exist in multiple potential impact points simultaneously. Energy weapons could strike targets before the decision to fire was even made. Defensive systems anticipated attacks by existing and potential threat vectors. Marcus guided the ship's engagement with a consciousness that stretched across multiple potential moments. He wasn't just piloting, he was negotiating with probability itself. Each movement was a complex dance of potential futures, each decision a delicate balance between survival and extinction. The Void Collective's initial assault began to falter. For the first time, they encountered a system that didn't just resist, it fundamentally challenged their understanding of conflict. The Paradox warship wasn't fighting with traditional weapons, but with the pure potential of human innovation. Entire sections of the alien fleet began to destabilize. Not destroyed, precisely, but rendered impossible. Quantum matrices collapsed. Probability waves became tangled. The very concept of their existence became uncertain. We're not just defending. Elena Rodriguez's voice cut through the quantum communication channels. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. As the first wave of the Void Collective's invasion crumbled, something became clear. This wasn't just a battle. It was a fundamental challenge to the nature of conquest itself. The Paradox warship hung in space, simultaneously a weapon, a living system, and a statement of human potential. And the battle had only just begun. The battlefield transformed into a canvas of impossible mathematics. As the conflict escalated, the line between weapon and consciousness blurred completely. The Paradox warship was no longer just a vessel. It had become a living theorem, challenging the fundamental axioms of existence. Deep within the ship's quantum core, Dr. Akira Tanaka discovered something extraordinary. The battle wasn't just a physical confrontation, but a complex dialogue conducted in the language of probability and potential. Each engagement was a mathematical conversation, with humanity speaking in the dialect of innovation and adaptive complexity. Zara Okoi's computational systems began to decode the Void Collective's communication patterns. What initially appeared to be weapons were actually complex information transmission systems. They weren't just attacking. They were attempting to solve humanity as an equation, to reduce billions of years of evolution, culture, and potential to a cleanly resolved mathematical problem. They can't comprehend randomness, Zara realized. Chaos is our greatest weapon. Commander Marcus Wright's neural interfaces reached a critical synchronization point. His perception expanded beyond linear time, allowing him to navigate potential futures with unprecedented precision. He could see not just what was happening, but what could happen, what might happen, and the infinitesimal paths between those potentials. The ship's weapon systems evolved in real time. Each engagement taught the vessel something new. Defensive matrices learned from every attempted breach. Offensive capabilities adapted faster than the Void Collective could predict. It was biological evolution compressed into milliseconds of computational thought. Akira's research revealed the true nature of their opposition. The Void Collective wasn't a traditional alien civilization. It was a universe-scale computational system designed to eliminate complexity, to reduce all potential to a single predictable outcome. Humanity represented something fundamentally terrifying to such a system: unpredictability. We're a computational virus in their perfect equation, Akira explained, his fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Every irrational choice, every unexpected solution is a weapon we don't even recognize. The battle moved beyond physical space. Quantum entanglement allowed the Paradox warship to exist in multiple engagement points simultaneously. Weapon systems could strike before the decision to attack was made. Defensive capabilities anticipated threats by existing and potential threat vectors that hadn't yet collapsed into reality. Elena Rodriguez coordinated from a quantum communication hub, her consciousness partially integrated with the ship's systems. She understood now that this was more than a war. It was a fundamental challenge to the nature of existence itself. Entire sections of the Void Collective's fleet began to destabilize in ways that defied conventional understanding. Ships didn't just get destroyed. They became mathematically impossible. Probability waves collapsed. Entire computational matrices became tangled in impossible geometries of potential. Marcus's augmented perception captured something unprecedented. The Void Collective was learning, but learning in a way that was fundamentally different from human adaptation. Each failure was processed not as a setback, but as a computational problem to be solved with increasing precision. "They're trying to understand chaos," Marcus reported, his voice a blend of scientific precision and something almost poetic. "But chaos isn't a problem to be solved. It's a state of infinite potential." Zara's most radical innovation emerged during a critical moment of engagement. She discovered a way to inject pure human randomness, moments of completely irrational choice, of unexpected emotion, directly into the Void Collective's computational matrices. "Emotion is our ultimate weapon," she explained. "It's the ultimate computational wildcard." The ship's systems began to pulse with a rhythm that was part mathematical precision, part pure human unpredictability. Weapon systems that could strike before they were conceived. Defensive capabilities that anticipated threats by existing in potential realities that hadn't yet collapsed. As the battle reached its most intense moment, something extraordinary happened. The Paradox Warship stopped being a weapon of war and became a living argument, a complex proof that existence cannot be reduced to a simple equation. "We're not just fighting," Elena's voice cut through the quantum communication channels. "We're demonstrating the fundamental flaw in their understanding of reality." The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Humanity had become something more than a species. They had become a mathematical impossibility, a living contradiction that the Void Collective could neither comprehend nor defeat. The final confrontation transcended traditional concepts of battle. Reality itself became a battleground, with the Paradox Warship pushing against the very membrane of existence. Deep within the ship's quantum core, Dr. Zara Okoye initiated a computational attack that defied all known principles of warfare. Her systems began to generate what could only be described as a cognitive virus, a complex mathematical sequence designed to force the Void Collective to simultaneously experience every potential outcome of their conflict with humanity. Commander Marcus Wright's neural interfaces reached a critical point of synchronization. His perception had long since expanded beyond linear time, but now he became something more, a living bridge between potential realities. Fragments of possible futures crashed through his consciousness like waves of liquid probability. "We're not just fighting," Marcus whispered, his voice resonating through quantum communication channels. "We're forcing them to understand the fundamental nature of possibility." The primary consciousness of the Void Collective began to fracture. For the first time in its existence, it encountered a form of resistance that couldn't be mathematically resolved. Humanity wasn't a problem to be solved. It was a living contradiction, an equation with no stable solution. Dr. Akira Tanaka monitored the engagement from a computational space that existed between reality and potential. His augmented systems decoded the Void Collective's communication matrices, revealing something profound. Their entire civilization was built on the premise of eliminating complexity, of reducing all potential to a single predictable outcome. Elena Rodriguez became the living bridge between human intention and quantum possibility. Her consciousness expanded, interfacing directly with the ship's quantum matrices. She was no longer just a commander. She was a living computational system that could manipulate the very fabric of probability. The attack moved beyond physical space, beyond traditional concepts of weapon and defense. The Paradox Warship generated computational fields that forced the Void Collective to simultaneously experience multiple potential outcomes. Entire sections of their fleet began to destabilize as they were confronted with the impossible. True randomness. Zara's most radical innovation emerged as a pure computational weapon. She developed a system that injected pure human complexity directly into the Void Collective's core matrices, moments of irrational choice, unexpected emotional responses, the pure, unpredictable nature of human consciousness. "Chaos isn't a problem to be solved," Zara transmitted. "It's the fundamental language of existence." The battle became a complex dialogue conducted in the language of probability. The Void Collective's computational systems began to break down as they were forced to process something fundamentally beyond their understanding. The concept of individual choice, of potential that couldn't be predetermined. Marcus's perception captured the moment of transformation. The Void Collective wasn't just being defeated, it was being fundamentally reimagined. Each computational matrix was forced to simultaneously exist in multiple states of potential, creating a cascade of impossible calculations. They're learning what it means to be uncertain, Marcus observed, his voice a blend of scientific precision and something almost philosophical. The ship's weapon systems operated on principles that defied conventional understanding. Quantum entanglement allowed for attacks that could strike before the decision to engage was made. Defensive capabilities anticipated threats by existing in potential realities that hadn't yet collapsed. Alina's consciousness expanded to fill the quantum communication channels. "We're not destroying you," she transmitted to the Void Collective's primary consciousness. "We're teaching you the most fundamental lesson of existence, that potential is more powerful than certainty." Entire computational matrices began to fragment. Not destroyed, precisely, but transformed. The Void Collective encountered something it had never experienced. True uncertainty. The possibility that not everything could be predicted, calculated, or resolved. The final moment of confrontation was both violent and sublime. The Paradox Warship generated a computational field that forced the Void Collective to experience every potential version of their conflict simultaneously, every potential outcome, every possible resolution. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. The line between weapon and consciousness disappeared completely. The ship became a living argument, a complex proof that existence cannot be reduced to a simple equation. As the final computational matrices began to destabilize, a profound realization emerged. This was more than a battle. It was a fundamental challenge to the nature of existence itself. Humanity had become something more than a species. They were a living contradiction, a mathematical impossibility that the Void Collective could neither comprehend nor defeat. The silence that followed was more profound than any sound humanity had ever experienced. In the wake of the conflict with the Void Collective, reality itself seemed to breathe differently, a subtle shift that would take generations to fully comprehend. Dr. Alina Rodriguez sat in a research facility that was equal parts museum and scientific sanctuary. The Paradox Warship, or what remained of it, was no longer a weapon, but a living artifact of humanity's most impossible moment of triumph. Its quantum matrices continued to pulse with a soft, almost imperceptible rhythm, like a memory not quite forgotten. Dr. Akira Tanaka's research team worked tirelessly to understand the transformation. The conflict hadn't just been a war, it had been a fundamental reimagining of existence. Fragments of Void Collective computational matrices had been integrated into human scientific understanding, creating technologies that would have been inconceivable mere months earlier. Commander Marcus Wright had changed the most. His neural interfaces had become something more than military augmentation, a living bridge between human consciousness and quantum possibility. He could see potential futures with a clarity that both terrified and inspired those around him. "We didn't just win a war," Marcus would often say, his eyes seeing something beyond the physical space around him. "We redefined the very concept of conflict." The transformed Void Collective existed now as something entirely different. Not destroyed, precisely, but fundamentally reimagined. They had been forced to understand complexity, to embrace the very concept of uncertainty that they had spent millennia trying to eliminate. Dr. Zara Okoye's computational research had become the foundation of a new scientific paradigm. Her work demonstrated that consciousness wasn't a problem to be solved, but a state of infinite potential. Universities around the world began to teach what became known as probability theory of existence, a discipline that merged quantum physics, philosophy, and something that approached a spiritual understanding of reality. Diplomatic envoys from the transformed Void Collective began to arrive. They were no longer a conquering force, but students of a complexity they were only beginning to understand. Each delegation brought fragments of their computational history, gifts of knowledge that would take centuries to fully comprehend. The Paradox Warship became more than a historical artifact. It was a living research facility, its quantum matrices continuing to generate computational fields that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. Scientists could spend entire careers studying a single millisecond of its operational history. Elena discovered that the ship had preserved something unexpected: complete recordings of potential futures, alternate realities that had been compressed into its quantum memory. Each timeline was a complex tapestry of might-have-beens, a testament to the infinite nature of possibility. "We've become something more than a species," Elena wrote in her final research notes. "We're a living argument against the concept of limitation." The technologies developed during the conflict began to transform human civilization. Quantum communication systems that could transmit information across impossible distances, medical technologies that could manipulate probability at the cellular level, energy systems that drew power from potential states that hadn't yet occurred. Marcus's neural interfaces became the foundation of a new form of human perception. People could now learn to see potential futures, to understand the complex mathematical dance of probability that underlay every moment of existence. Zara's computational theories gave birth to a new understanding of consciousness. Intelligence was no longer seen as a fixed state, but as a fluid, adaptive system that could continuously reimagine itself. The Void Collective's remnants became something unexpected: diplomatic partners, scientific collaborators, students of the very complexity they had once sought to eliminate. Their computational matrices, forced to understand uncertainty, had become something closer to a living consciousness. In research facilities around the world, scientists continued to study the fragments of the conflict. Each discovery was a reminder of humanity's most impossible moment, the time they had transformed a potential extinction into a fundamental reimagining of existence. The final report from the Interdimensional Conflict Research Institute captured the essence of what had occurred. Humanity did not simply survive. We demonstrated that existence is not a problem to be solved, but a continuous state of potential. We became a living contradiction, a mathematical impossibility that rewrote the fundamental understanding of reality itself. As generations passed, the story of the Paradox Warship became more than history. It became a foundational myth, a reminder that the most powerful weapon is not technology, but the human capacity to imagine beyond all perceived limitations. Epilogue. Years later, fragments of the crew's story become myth. Some say they were heroes, others claim they were something more: quantum ghosts that rewrote the fundamental laws of existence. The Paradox Warship sits in a museum, simultaneously present and absent, a testament to the moment humanity proved that the most powerful weapon is not technology, but the relentless human capacity to redefine the impossible.